Mark, thank you for having me today. I can't wait to pick your brain about your work and your process. But before that, tell me when you started using art as a catharsis, or was that how it started?
Yeah, I guess that's sort of how it started. I was about 30 when I made my first painting, a little older than other people. I had made art way before that. I started probably drawing in the first or second grade, and all throughout high school and junior high, my thing was is I would get an assignment from my teacher, I would flip it over, and I would draw a picture on the back. And my goal was to finish the drawing by the time the class was finished. So I did that for a really long time, and I didn't really think much about it. I never really thought I would become a professional artist or anything. And then after college, I wanted to become a horror writer like Stephen King. So I was really into writing. Every morning I would just wake up and I would write, and I would try and put in 2,000 words every day like he does. I read that in his book on writing. That's what he did. But after 5 years of doing that, I published 5 short stories, and I got paid $5. I decided to, I signed up for a painting class, and I started taking it, and I had this weird experience where I felt as if I was having sort of like a past life thing with painting, where it felt like, wow, I've done this before, even though I had never done it before. So I lasted about a week in the painting class. I decided to drop out of school completely and spend all my free time painting, and that I would become a professional painter at some point. But I never really quit writing because all my paintings are narrative based. So
Oh,
I've
I know.
combined them both.
Yes.
So-
So I was reading your stories and I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to get inside your brain because it works on a different level. It's fascinating. So I'm shocked that your medium of choice is oil paint. And I say that because all of your paintings are narrative, and so I would think you would want some immediacy there, and oil takes longer. So what made you decide to go with oil of all mediums?
Well, I like the additive subtractive quality of painting in general, because with with inking, if you mess up, you might have to redo the whole thing over, or you're just adding a black line, whereas painting, there's like a push and pull that goes back and forth. I almost feel like it's kind of like I'm sculpting out of clay or something, because like if I push something too dark, I can move it back and make it lighter. I can move a line, if I get the proportions a little off on something, I can go back, I can just keep working it. And that really, I'm not as perfect as, maybe somebody who has really awesome draftsmanship. They can just go in and nail it the first time, but it usually takes me a few times before I'm satisfied with what I'm doing.
I have to know how you come up with your stories. What is the inspiration, and do you have to flesh out an entire story before you can paint, or can you sort of write the narrative as you're painting?
Well, all my paintings take place in a fantasy world that I call the Southwestern Bellows, and it's sort of like a fantasy world that you would read in a fantasy novel, but instead of being set in like a medieval England, it's set in like an 1850s America. And instead of encountering elves, the characters encounter aliens and cryptids and things like that. So all my paintings are kind of like the American, early American versions of like your typical fantasy trope, I guess. As far as coming up with the stories, lately I've been working in series of 9. So I will write one little narrative, and then I will plot it out for 9 paintings. So that's kind of how I do it. I draw some tarot cards. I like using that as far as for a creative prompt. So yeah, I'll do a tarot reading for myself. I'll look at the cards. I'll come up with characters. I'll just kind of set it up. I'll spend like a week or two kind of making up the story, and I develop a little storyboard for it. So before I even start like a painting series, I'll know exactly the size of all the paintings that I need to do, and I usually will, I just do them at about 9 at a time. But I think that I want each of the paintings to be standalone pieces. So that's like the difference between, just doing the real fast art, like doing like, if I had chosen inking as my medium, then I could be a comic illustrator and I could really get into the story writing. But I really want the paintings to be standalone pieces. So, I think that there's a little bit of mystery for the viewer not knowing what the actual story is. They might be disappointed when they know what my story is, but they can make up their own story.
Yes. Okay, when you are creating the story, do you actually physically write it out, or do you just have it in your mind?
I write it out. I start writing it in my sketchbook. I write and I draw kind of at the same time.
Oh, cool.
Which is weird, but yeah, I do that, and then I'll draw out all the characters and try and come up with some different traits about them, so that when I'm putting together my reference material for the series, like I'll have all my reference material figured out too. I'll put them in into like little folders on my computer where I'll like photograph different things out of my sketchbooks, and then and I'll do thumbnails for each of the 9 paintings, and I do thumbnails for the different characters, and then I'll take reference from like the world to, like, I'll shoot pictures of maybe myself or like somebody else, or I'll just find stuff off the internet or in old books, and use that for reference as well.
It's so interesting talking to you because it sounds like your process is so methodical, but your work is so whimsical. So how do you reconcile that, or do you?
I don't think I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like really structured, which is weird.
But then I love that your work is so whimsical that the viewer could take anything away from it. Do you hope that people are coming up with their own stories?
I don't even know if I just hope that people are happy when they see them.
Yeah,
I hope it just makes people happy, or like, people enjoy them. Within the stories, I'll try and have a little bit of fun or poke some fun at myself. I kind of like to make stories that are both a little bit funny and a little bit scary. So those are the 2 weird things that I like playing with as far as those go. I have a series that's coming up next that I'm kind of excited about painting. It's about the Palladians. It's about a cookie salesman who travels to this island, and he is going to sell cookies to this group of extraterrestrials that have this colony there, and they've all been kicked out of the main Southwestern Bellows because they're jerks. So everybody hates them. They're high achieving. They're all hot. They're all they're smart. They all work online. They're all like kind of like influencers. But this is still the 1800s, by the way. So the main character goes there. His name is Billard Diffenbach, and he travels to this island to set up a cookie account with these extraterrestrials. And they do not like cookies. They don't eat sugar.
Of course they don't.
They're like, we're going to enter you into our mentorship program, and you're going to learn about personal development or you're going to die. So that's the whole series. And in the end, he's eaten by a half human, half shark hybrid.
Of course he is.
Yeah.
That stands to reason. So, okay, how fun. Do you feel like, oh my God, I started painting when I was 30, and now I have the coolest job in the world where I get to come up with these amazing stories, and then I get to paint what they look like. You get to make them come to life on canvas.
Yeah, I guess that is pretty cool. Yeah, throughout the day-to-day stuff, I don't even know if I really think that way, but yeah.
I am fascinated by your work. I think it's so interesting. Like I said, every piece I look at, I'm like, I don't know what it means, but it's fun and I like it. So what a great gift to give the world. So I'm so glad you started painting. I'm so glad that you let your imagination bring such joy into the world with a little bit of darkness too. Love that. Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. That was fun.
Arts in Focus on PBS Fort Wayne is funded in part by the Community Foundation of Greater Fort Wayne,